Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today we're going to take a look at something very near and dear to my heart. I have some closeness with this particular design in a few different ways, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But what we're looking at today is going to be the Jerry Moen and Millit knives collaboration called the Max Evolution. And we'll start here with the packaging, since I already have it sitting here in the box. Nice clean packaging. We've seen a lot of companies go from zippered cases to cardboard boxes to Pelican cases or something similar. This obviously isn't a watertight Pelican case or OtterBox or anything, but it's still a really nice presentation. Nice hard case, protects the knife in transit. And I suppose if you're the kind that stores your knives in individual boxes, it'll work well for that too, but who the hell does that? Alright, so let's get this bad boy open and see what comes inside. First, stickers! Yay! We love stickers. I don't know why, but I like getting stickers. And look, more stickers. Max Evolution, Jerry Moen knives, and Millit knives. So I'm good on stickers now. Good on stickers. You get a, actually this is a sticker too, oddly enough. This is your COA. So here it is, Max Evolution Custom 1 of 1, made with CTS, XHP, and then it goes on to list all the other great things. So it's a satin compound grind, handle is titanium, you have a gold shred carbon fiber, we'll talk more about that, and then that is inlaid into a border of brass. Then everything else that you see that's gold colored is actually gold anodized titanium. And there is the build date on that. Those of you that went to the Blade Show probably got a chance to handle this knife. My knife actually went to the Blade Show with Millit because they were entering it into, I think it was into Collaboration of the Year, but I'm not entirely certain which of the categories they were going in for an award for. So it was there for people to touch and fondle and play with, and I finally got it after the Blade Show was over. Now, this is a project that's been in the works for a very, very, very long time. Let's talk a little bit about the knife first, then we'll talk about the project. First, it's just under 9 inches overall length, about 8 3/4 inches, and you have a cutting edge of 3.5 inches. If you go all the way back here to the back end, it's right between 3.5 and 3 3/4 inches. So it's actually a pretty large knife. I don't think that some people got the scope of the size of this knife because maybe they were used to seeing some of Jerry's custom knives and assuming it was the same size. And I'll give you that comparison. Here is the Blue Max, which is where many of, actually pretty much all of Jerry's folding knives influence stems from the original Blue Max. And then there is the Panther, which was, in essence, a titanium Blue Max. So there they are side by side, and you see that it is considerably larger. It's about the same size as a Blue Max 1. Now, I don't have my Blue Max 1 because I was hanging out in the shop one day, and Jerry just kind of stopped and looked at the floor, and he goes, you know what I just realized? I'm done making all the Blue Maxes, and I sold every one, and I never kept one for myself. So I actually gave Jerry back the big Blue Max 1 because I ended up carrying the 2 more often. And he likes the 1 better, so it all worked out great. So that's why I don't have that here for size comparison. Now, we'll talk more about the differences in the knives here in a moment, but let's talk about the origin story as we take a good close look at the knife. Now, if you go back just under 2 years ago, Jerry decided to do a little get-together at his shop, and we were kind of coming up with ideas on what to do and who to invite and how to get enough word out there. And as I was spreading the word, Jerry was at the time talking about maybe doing a mid-tech or production knife. And I said, hey, these guys over at Millit Knives, these are all the Chris Reeve Knives employees that started up their own shop, and they're awesome guys, and they're doing cool work. They're working with Gavin Hawk, and they're doing some really awesome shit. You should get together with them. So I put those guys together, and Millit, Shane from Millit, came down to the shop, and we did the hangout. And also came with his partner, by the way, don't want to forget about that. So we all kind of hung out for the day and had fun and ate lots and lots and lots of barbecue that Jerry's son Kyle brought out. And it was just a great time. And they came to some agreements while we were having the get-together on making this knife. Fast forward a couple of months, it's time to start on the project, and I'm texting back and forth with Shane while I was at work, and he shows me the first pass rendering. He's like, what do you think? And what it was this handle with the same blade shape that we're used to seeing from Jerry in his customs. And I said, well, you know, as great as Jerry's blade shape is, because it is a very useful blade shape, I said it needs to be a little bit different. I truly believe it's got to be a little bit different so that, number one, it sets itself apart from them, and number two, it may appeal to a larger audience if it was something a bit different, like a Wharncliffe or a sheep's foot. And he's like, you know what, that's a really good idea. So we kind of batted it around back and forth, and Shane and myself came up with this particular blade shape. Ran it by Jerry. Jerry loved the idea because it was so out of the box for what he was typically doing, but it was still a great, useful blade shape. So I felt really good by having a little bit of influence on the design as it was being finished, and I love how that came out. Like I said, I love Jerry's original blade shape, but I feel that this blade shape appeals to more people because Wharncliffes and sheep's foot and all those great blade shapes have become more and more popular over the past 4 or 5 years. And this really is a great sheep's foot design. So as we go through the period of working everything up, and they were changing some ideas back and forth and trying to figure out how to get Jerry's tab lock to work properly in here and get the right detent set and everything else, I started seeing the prototypes showing up as I was hanging out in Jerry's shop, and every prototype that showed up was better than the last. And you could see the excitement in Jerry's eyes about getting a knife done that is more affordable and obviously made in a larger production, which is why he chose to go to Millit, to allow more people to be able to experience his style of knife. Every time we got a new prototype, we got a little more excited and a little more excited. And then Shane and I started talking about mine, which of course, you know me, I always got to be unique and be different. And we were having a really hard time coming up with the one knife that was really going to just be amazing. And I didn't want to do the typical thing that I normally do where everything's Timascus and Damasteel and all that stuff. And they were already doing some really exotic things anyway with Damasteel. I think they were 10 or 15 Damasteel blade versions, and they looked amazing. So he says, you know what, I want to kind of model some of the aspects of the knife after your car. I said, okay, that's a lot of people have done that. I've got a lot of bright, screaming green knives that go, that match up to the Hellcat and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I kind of don't want to do that all over again. He's like, no, we're just going to take some little inspirations. And one of the inspirations that he took, and it's going to be hard to really see it here, is in the backspacer. The way he shaped the backspacer is actually the shape of the rear deck lid spoiler on my Hellcat. So it was one neat little thing that he was doing. Then everything kind of stopped. Everything got very hectic and very busy for Millit. They were taking on more and more projects with Gavin Hawk. The new muds were coming out. They were doing the pony knife, and they were in the process of designing their own Millit designed knife. So I never got to see my knife. Yeah, I didn't complain. I didn't say anything. I didn't text or call. And every now and then Shane would go, hey, we didn't forget about you. I just want to do something really special, and I'm really trying to figure out what that's going to be. So just bear with me. Then I got to start seeing other guys like Austin, other YouTube reviewers, reviewing the knife that I was so closely involved in, and it's being made by one of my best friends and my mentor, Jerry Moen, and it kind of bugged me a little bit. I'm like, I kind of should have been the first guy on YouTube to show this to people, but I understood where Shane was coming from. It had to be special, and he put his heart and soul into this, and there's not another one like it. For a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, all blacked out looks great. So the entire titanium frame is all blacked out. The blade was all blacked out. then he decided to do this really badass compound grind. Very much influenced, I would say, by Tony Marfione. Tony Marfione is famous for having the very large peak in between the two grinds. Beautifully done. It's a really high luster satin. You can see the reflection of my studio lights, the stand and everything right there in the bevels. Really, really beautifully done. Now, the standard versions were machine hollow ground, and then you could get into the custom versions, which were then hand ground. So there were a lot of different variations. Your basic price point was around $450, $475 to get into one of these versions. And then if you got into a more custom version, it would cost more from there. This is well over $1,000 as it sits here. But one of the other neat things, and another little story to go into, is this rather unique inlay material. This is not something that we've seen anywhere else in the world before. You've seen stuff somewhat similar. We've seen shredded carbon fiber with metal in there. It's usually going to be copper. As a matter of fact, Jerry has worked with that in the past, both in matte finishes and in polished finishes. However, this actually came into existence as I was talking to my good friend Nate, who owns A&J Composites. It used to be called Ghost Carbon Fiber. And one of his suppliers was looking at doing something different. I said, listen, I have an idea that I'd love to see make it into the knife industry. It comes from the watch industry. There's a watch brand called Hublot. And what Hublot does on a couple of very specific models is that they have created their own carbon fiber where they've infused flecks of genuine gold into the carbon fiber and into the resin. He's like, well, I'll talk to them and see if they're willing to do that. And over the course of about 6 or 7 months, they experimented with different things. They didn't want to start with the gold, obviously, because if it didn't work out right, you're wasting real gold and it's expensive. So they started, I want to say it was with aluminum, then they did it with titanium, and then finally moved their way into putting real flakes of gold into the mix. I had no idea that Millit got their hands on this. There was one, I don't know if you want to call it a sheet or a bar or whatever, but one sample of it made. One. When Shane showed me a quick sneak peek, he texted me a picture of him holding my knife, and I saw that inlay. I'm like, wait, where the hell did you get that? He's like, oh, it's the only one that exists. I said, no, yeah, I know that because it came from me going through, Nate, who's the carbon fiber god, and he went through his manufacturer to have something like that made. I said, I didn't even know that it actually even got produced. He's like, yeah, this is it right here. And I just thought it was really very oddly coincidental that it ended up on a knife that I ended up with in the end. So it's kind of fun, and that's what makes this particular knife very, very unique to me and very special to me, because until we start seeing more of this, right now this is the only example of that. Now, if by now that I've actually got the knife and it's sitting here in my hands and I'm making the video, it could already be in production and there could be makers out there that are working with it. But when this knife was originally being worked on, man, we're going back 6 months now. This was the only, just enough here to make these two sides was all that existed. And funny enough, when I got the knife and I went down to Jerry's shop and showed it to him, he's like, that's my favorite one. And I'm going to make sure that Millit makes one for me just like that. He fell in love with this thing. Now, there are a few different ways that you can get into the Max Evolution. They're pretty much all sold out now at this point, but there's still a couple left. You can go to millitknives.com and check them out. You choose between the titanium version, which again is around that $450, $475 range in the basic versions, and that's with the textured titanium. Then you get into the inlays, and they obviously, depending on the material, go up in price. But there's a new budget version where the handle is made of aluminum instead of titanium, and that is even more affordable. So what you've got is a great full-size knife. I mean, this is a big ass knife. However, it's very slim and it's very lightweight for its size. And that's one of the things that Jerry has incorporated into his custom work. And that's where the Blue Max got so famous, because it was so incredibly lightweight, because this whole thing was carbon fiber, that he didn't want to stray too far from that formula. Even going into titanium, it's still extraordinarily lightweight. They did a fantastic job all the way around. They incorporated his style of tab lock into it. It's a nice solid lockup. The detent on mine is perfect, and Shane knows that I like a nice snappy detent, and he was very kind to fine-tune this one specifically for me. Great edge on this, super duper 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 sharp. There's that custom pivot, gold anodized titanium. There is the brass frame around the inlay. They did a great job on these all the way around. They have to be highly commended for their workmanship. The clip design is fantastic, as you see, blind screwed clip, no external hardware for it. Actually, the only hardware that you see is just for the back spacer, and they've decorated that as well. That is all anodized titanium as well, just like the back spacer. Overall, it's just a fantastic knife that I am extremely proud to have in my collection. It's something that I've been waiting a long time for, and the wait was so well worth it. And I don't want it to sound like I was impatiently waiting. I know what happens when a maker really puts their heart and soul into something, and they want to make something special and unique and unlike anything else. And you know what? That's going to take some time. I just want to throw some light on there just so you get a better idea of that incredible inlay. Holy crap, just look at that thing. And the fact they did it black and gold is a theme I've only really had in a couple of knives, so again, that makes it special. I just think it's fantastic. It's a beautiful representation of a slim tactical style folder. Great execution. I haven't heard anybody yet complain. Everybody that's gotten theirs and been all over social media over the past year has loved their Max Evolution, and I really hope to see them do something like this again in the future. Now, one thing to keep in mind, Jerry is, let's call it semi-retired from making knives at this point. He's at the point now where he's developing much bigger things for the industry, like the carbide rotary cooled platen that you saw the video on my channel. He's designing and making things for knife makers to make their lives easier and make them more efficient. And he's focusing a lot less on making knives. At this point, he just kind of wants to, well, hey, when I feel like making a knife, I'll go in the shop and make a knife. But he's not opening up his books, he's not taking orders. So the only real way to get one of his knives is to get into something like this. He's still a director for the Knife Makers Guild. He's still very, very involved with that. He'll be at the ICCE show in Kansas City. What is that, October? I think it's in October. So you can certainly walk up and meet him there. Hopefully he'll have a couple of knives on display to show you there, but he really is focusing on that incredible fixture for knife makers. So I don't know how many more custom knives we're going to be seeing from Jerry, but if this ends up being the last major design that he does, man, he really went out with a bang. And I'm really glad that Millit pulled through, and because there were a lot of knives to make, and they busted their asses and they got them done, and they look fantastic. And it's been really nice to hear such so many accolades for this knife from so many customers. And now, I finally get to experience it myself with my own knife. So there you have it, guys. There is the story of the Max Evolution, my love for this knife, and the couple of particular things that I was able to kind of lend some of my help in the design of it. Jerry did an amazing job with all of the knives and all of the inspiration that led up to it. Millit did a great job with execution, and that's about all you can really expect. It's a great collaboration, and I hope to see more in the future. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I've got more videos to make. I've got so much on my plate right now. I'm really trying to balance it out, and I'm trying to get more videos out. But I've been spending a hell of a lot of time in my shop doing stuff like this. Yeah, I know. I just don't want to sit down and make a video about my own knives because it just seems far too self-serving. But I did want to show one to you in case you don't follow me on Instagram and you haven't seen the work that I've been doing. And I've only been doing this for a few months now, about 6 months now, and I've been very, very fortunate with Jerry's help to be able to make stuff like this and do really cool shit. And that's one of the reasons I have such a great admiration and respect for him, and why I was so excited to see this particular knife come out. But that's also why you don't really see me doing a lot of videos. You know, every hour I'm not in my shop, I'm not making money. I don't make money doing this. So, trying my best. I'm going to get some more out here to you. And until then, I'll see you on the next video.